What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my updated college football top 25 rankings as we head into week 12 of this 2024 college football season. I have made quite a lot of changes here to my top 25 for this week with all the chaos that's been happening here for the last couple weeks, and I definitely made a lot of changes for this week as we go into week 12 of this 2024 season. Again, we just saw so many great games and so many big close games, and of course a lot of upsets did play out, so I did make quite a few changes here to my top 25. I got a couple of new teams in here as well, but then I moved some teams up based off of their wins and based off of their resumes. So let's go ahead and get right into my top 25 here for week number 12 as we head into the third weekend of this month of November. So let's go ahead and get started here. We'll start from the bottom and work our way to the top. So beginning here with 21 through 25. I got Western Kentucky at number 25, Navy at 24, Army at 23, LSU at 22, and then Louisville at number 21. So Western Kentucky gets in here to the top 25 for me for the first time this year, and you're probably wondering, why are the Hilltoppers ranked? Well, it's not just because of the record. Western Kentucky has a couple of good losses against two Power 4 teams. They have the loss to Alabama in week 1. That game, of course, was pretty ugly for them, 63-0, but that loss is looking pretty good now for Western Kentucky, and then they have the loss to Boston College, so I got to give them credit there for losing a couple of games to two Power 4 teams. I know the Alabama game was pretty ugly, but Western Kentucky is actually the front runner in the Conference USA. I was very close to putting Liberty in here until I found out that Western Kentucky is the front runner, and then also they haven't lost a conference game yet, so yeah, congratulations to the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers at number 25. They are in my rankings here for the first time this week. And then Navy at number 24. Navy did bounce back this week. I really wasn't sure who they played against, but, Navy, they lost the last couple games. They do bounce back after a 2-game losing streak. They did lose to Notre Dame, so that's the reason why, Navy is pretty much in these rankings for this week. The Notre Dame game is looking like a really good loss for them, and Navy has to keep, winning in order to kind of, succeed and also still be in this top 25. So Navy at number 24. Army at number 23. They beat North Texas on the road 14-3. Kind of an ugly game, to be honest, because Army wasn't really that explosive on the offensive side of the football that we're kind of used to seeing here for the Black Knights, but a win's a win. Either way, their defense did prevail in this game. I mean, offensively, they are having some struggles now, it seems like, for the last couple weeks, but again, a win's a win. Army is now 9-0 heading into week number 12 of this 2024 college football season. And then LSU at number 22. They were at number 15 for me last week. They do drop a good amount after losing to Alabama at home, and they got blown out in this game, 42-13. LSU's offense really struggled to get things going. The defense for LSU really struggled as well at stopping the run game of Alabama, and that was all over from there. Alabama just showed no mercy to LSU, and I did talk about that in my recap video from yesterday. Alabama just looked like the overall better team, and LSU was an underdog in this game, and I thought playing at Death Valley, it was going to be a very tough game for Alabama. Alabama did have that false start penalty in the first play of the game, and then from there, it was just all Alabama from there, and these receivers for Alabama were really tough to stop for the defense of LSU. So LSU now has 3 losses. I don't think they can make the college football playoff as a 9-3 team. You look at their resume, they have definitely a better resume than Army, Navy, and Western Kentucky. I know Army, Navy, and Western Kentucky have better records than LSU, but it's not really about the record. It's more about the resume. LSU has losses to USC. That might be their worst loss on their resume. Then you got the loss to Texas A&M and Alabama. Those are 2 really good losses for LSU. And then they got the win over Ole Miss, which is looking like really a lot better, resume for LSU. And that win's looking a lot better against Ole Miss. So that's really what's keeping LSU here in these rankings at number 22. Louisville did not play this week. They're sitting there at number 21. They have 3 really good losses to top 15 teams. They got Miami. That's a loss there for them, but they were really competitive in that game, 52-45. They lost that game, but Louisville definitely came out really competitive. They had the loss to Notre Dame, which is really good of a loss there, and then they also had the loss to SMU. So yeah, Louisville might be the best 3-loss team in the country, in my opinion. So yeah, Louisville at number 21. did not play this week, this past weekend, but they'll get ready for Stanford this week. So they're heading out west. But I forgot to mention, Louisville has a win over Clemson, and that game, of course, on the road. So, yeah, Louisville might be the best 6-3 team in the country. So the Cardinals here at number 21. These are my rankings here from 21 through 25. All right, 16 through 20 now. I got Colorado at number 20, Missouri at 19, Kansas State at number 18, Miami at 17, and then Washington State at 16. So Colorado, they beat Texas Tech on the road 41-27. Colorado got the recovery of the fumble on the end zone, and that kind of sealed the deal from there. So yeah, nice win for Colorado on the road at Texas Tech. You look at Colorado's resume, the 2 losses come to Kansas State in the Big 12. That's a pretty good loss for them. They're sitting just right behind them there at number 18. And then the other loss came to Nebraska, the non-conference. And Colorado's got a pretty good chance to, win out and go to the Big 12 championship. They got one conference loss to Kansas State. So, yeah, Colorado here at number 20. Again, we're mostly talking about their win over Texas Tech. And they got the big win there, 41-27. Colorado now is 7-2 here on the season. Missouri at number 19. Boy, Missouri, a close call against Oklahoma, 30-23. This game was pretty much ugly in the first half, but second half it seemed like both offenses kind of got going. But the Tigers do prevail. I mean, Oklahoma definitely had a chance. It seems like Oklahoma kind of finds ways to lose sometimes, but they haven't done that all year. It was just a bad mistake by the quarterback to fumble the football, and Missouri scooped it up and scored a touchdown. And that was kind of the similarity for Colorado and Missouri. Missouri and Colorado both had defensive touchdowns to seal their games this weekend. So both of those teams kind of similar. They both have like identical 7-2 records, and a couple of losses to some pretty solid teams. Missouri has a couple of losses though to Texas A&M and Alabama, so those are pretty good losses now for Missouri. But Missouri also still has the win over Vanderbilt, which may not be the best win, but Missouri will have a tough test coming up this weekend against South Carolina, and maybe that win over South Carolina could boost their resume a little bit. But yeah, Missouri here at number 19, they beat Oklahoma at home 30-23. They get a scoop and score touchdown to win it. Kansas State did not play this week. They'll get ready to get back in action this weekend, try to bounce back after the loss to Houston a couple weeks ago. But yeah, the Wildcats here at 18. Miami at number 17. So Miami does drop a good amount for me. They were at number 5 for me, I believe, last week, and I did drop them a good amount. If you look at Miami's resume, they don't really have a lot of great, wins on their resume. They played an easy schedule this year. Miami has had some tough games here and there. Maybe the Duke game is probably their best win because Duke is actually a pretty solid team. But, Duke doesn't really have a great resume either. But, yeah, Miami here at number 17. I had to drop them a good amount, and I do have them behind Washington State because Washington State does have the one loss to Boise State. That's a pretty good loss, and that's a better, resume than Miami. But Miami, they do drop here. First loss of the season. They lose to Georgia Tech 28-23. Very tough loss here for the Hurricanes because now when you look at the ACC race, you got Clemson and SMU sitting at the top of the ACC. So Miami probably needs to, see SMU lose like one game in the conference, maybe 2 at least, because if SMU doesn't lose a game for the rest of the year, Miami's going to be out of the ACC championship, and they probably won't make the playoff either, maybe as a one-loss team. But again, Miami did struggle in this game at stopping the run game of Georgia Tech. That was definitely a big factor in this game. Georgia Tech running the football down this Miami defense, and the offense just didn't do what we kind of expected here, coming back from the second half deficit, and that's what they've been doing all year. Cam Ward just refuses to let his team lose, but that did not happen this week. Miami goes down for the first time this year, and they lose their first game of the season at Georgia Tech, so Miami does drop a good amount for me. Again, I had them at number 5 last week, and I got them at number 17 for this week. Washington State at 16, just talked about it. Let's talk about their game, though. They defeated, it was Utah State that they defeated. So, yeah, they beat Utah State 42-28, so they kind of took care of business in that game, winning by like 14 points, somewhere in that range. And Washington State, again, has a better resume than Miami. They had the loss to Boise State, so that's the reason why you're seeing the Cougars ahead of the Hurricanes. But yeah, Washington State here at 16, a solid win over Utah State this past weekend. These are my rankings here from 16 through 20. All right, let's go from 11 through 15 now. Boise State at number 15, Texas A&M at 14, Clemson at number 13, Georgia at number 12, and then Ole Miss at number 11. So Boise State, they move into the top 15 based off of what happened to Miami. I mean, that's just the basic reason there. And you look at Boise State's resume, it's obviously better than Miami's. Boise State has a loss to the number 1 ranked team in the country in Oregon. And then they have the win over UNLV, which is pretty solid. And, that's a pretty solid win for Boise State. So not a lot on the resume for the Broncos, but they do have the win over Washington State, which I forgot to mention. So they have that win over Washington State. They had the loss to Oregon, and they have a pretty solid win over UNLV. So Boise State here at number 15. They had a pretty tough outing, though, against Nevada, 28-21. So not a very impressive win for Boise State, but yeah, the Broncos do prevail. They're now here in the top 15 for me at number 15, sitting there with a record of 8-1. Texas A&M did not play this past weekend. They had a bye week, but they'll get back in action coming up this weekend. We'll see if this team can bounce back after losing to South Carolina a couple weeks ago. Texas A&M still has a pretty good opportunity to get to the SEC championship. If you look at the standings, Texas A&M is actually in front. They got that one conference loss to South Carolina, but they still got a pretty good shot to make the SEC title game. Clemson at number 13, a bounce-back win for the Tigers on the road at Virginia Tech, 24-14. The offense didn't really do much in this game, but, the defense definitely looked like it's getting a lot better for the Tigers. So Clemson, again, just a bounce-back win after the loss to Louisville a week ago. So Clemson here at number 13. Georgia at number 12, they drop out of the top 10 for me and also out of the top 5 after losing to Ole Miss here on the road, which is just ahead of them here. Yeah, it was just a pretty ugly performance for Georgia. I think the weather had something to do with it, to be honest, but yeah, the defense for Georgia just could not stop these receivers for Ole Miss. They were giving up explosive plays in the secondary. The defensive line, I thought, did a nice job, but, the secondary for Georgia just could not do much, and Carson Beck did not really play bad in this game. It was just that he was getting pressured and sacked a lot. So, yeah, this was a tough loss here for Georgia. You look at Georgia's resume, though, they still have that win over Clemson. I know Clemson won and Georgia lost, but I got to keep Georgia ahead of here of Clemson. I just realized they still have that win over Clemson in week 1. And then the couple of losses, of course, come now to Ole Miss and Alabama. So not bad losses for Georgia, but they're here at number 12 for me. They drop a good amount. Again, I think I had them at number 2 last week, and I did drop them here 10 spots, so a lot of spots here dropped for Georgia. And again, they just did not really play that well. So Georgia at number 12, and then Ole Miss at number 11. Big win against Georgia. They improved to 8-2 on the season. Now, Ole Miss does have a bad loss to Kentucky, but it doesn't really matter. Ole Miss does have a loss to LSU as well, but it doesn't really matter. Ole Miss definitely deserves a lot of credit. Their defense was definitely the difference in this game. Their defense really shut down that Georgia offense. They put pressure on Carson Beck when they had to. So, yeah, Ole Miss, this is a big win for them. They're still alive in the playoff race, in my opinion, because if you look at the rest of the schedule the rest of the way for Ole Miss, if they beat like Florida and then also like Mississippi State, this Ole Miss team has a chance to make the college football playoff as a 10-2 team. So watch out here for Ole Miss at number 11. And then on the other side for Georgia, they have a big test coming up this week. Forgot to talk about that. Georgia does play Tennessee this weekend. If they lose that game, Georgia might be out of the playoffs. So keep an eye on that game. But Ole Miss here at number 11. And these are my rankings here from 11 through 15. All right, 6 through 10 now as we go to the top 10. I got Indiana at number 10, SMU at number 9, Alabama at number 8, BYU at number 7, and then Notre Dame comes in at number 6. So Indiana, they beat Michigan 20-15. Indiana is now 10-0. And going back to my recap video from yesterday, I forgot to mention that Indiana does not play Ohio State this weekend, so that's a big mistake on my part. I was kind of getting ahead of the schedule. So Indiana actually plays Ohio State next weekend. So that game, of course, going to be next weekend. This weekend, they'll have a bye week, so Indiana kind of gets time to prepare here for that Ohio State game. And they are 10-0. Again, a very impressive performance against Michigan. Again, it was a close game, but, that was kind of the first tough defense that Indiana kind of went up against this year. But I got the Hoosiers here at number 10. SMU at number 9 did not play this past weekend. They'll get back in action here, and they'll play their first November game coming up this weekend. So SMU here at number 9. Actually, they played against Pittsburgh already. So, yeah, I'm kind of getting messed up on the schedule, but SMU here at number 9. Alabama at number 8. Boy, a big win on the road at LSU. I just talked about it a little bit earlier. Alabama showed no mercy in this game. And again, when you look at that first play for Alabama, they had that false start penalty, due to the loud crowd. It was a really loud environment that they were in. But Alabama was really more prepared than LSU was. They had the bye week to kind of get ready for this road game. And we've seen Alabama had their struggles on the road, but they won this game. Alabama was definitely the more better team. Jalen Milroe was unstoppable in this game. The running game was definitely the difference on the offensive side of the football. And the defense for Alabama looks like it's coming along. The defense looks like it's gotten better in the last couple of games. They beat Missouri 34-0 like a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I should say. And then they just beat LSU. So, this defense for Alabama, it's looking like it's come a long way. And then you look at the losses for Alabama, it's 2 really tough losses. The Tennessee game is looking like a really good loss still for Alabama. The Vanderbilt game, it's just a solid loss because Vanderbilt did lose to South Carolina this past weekend. But yeah, the Crimson Tide, this is kind of the Alabama team that we're kind of expecting going the rest of the way forward. It seems like, it takes Alabama until the month of November to kind of show that they are still a playoff team. So Alabama here at number 8. BYU at number 7, surviving on the road at Utah 22-21. They still remain undefeated, and they are now 9-0. They'll have a test coming up against Kansas. I know that's not a big test there, but Kansas actually just pulled off the upset against Iowa State. Iowa State not in this top 25 this week. So yeah, BYU, that might be an upset alert game this week, so keep an eye on that. But the Cougars, they do survive. They remain undefeated at 9-0. Notre Dame at number 6, they were back in action this past weekend. They took care of business against Florida State. Pretty sure it was like 52-3 if I'm not mistaken. So the Fighting Irish do prevail. They're like on a winning streak ever since that loss to Northern Illinois. And just think about it, Notre Dame did not lose that game. This team would probably be undefeated right now at 9-0. But Notre Dame here at number 6. These are my rankings here from the 6 through 10 range. All right, to the top 5 now. A lot of changes in the top 5 this week. I got Penn State here at number 5. Tennessee at number 4, Texas at number 3, Ohio State at 2, and then Oregon comes in at number 1. So Penn State did bounce back against Washington. Did not really watch that game because it was on Peacock, but I heard they won like 35-6 if I'm not mistaken. So the Nittany Lions do bounce back after the loss to Ohio State from a couple of weeks ago. So Penn State here at number 5. Tennessee at number 4 beat Mississippi State 33-14. First half, the running game for Tennessee just continued to be like the difference here in this game. And that's been the difference for Tennessee all year long is the running game. Dylan Sampson continues to be one of the best running backs in the SEC. I know he was not 100% going into the second half, but he just refuses to let his team lose. So Tennessee at number 4. Now the question and the concerns for Tennessee going into this weekend's game against Georgia definitely is the injury to Nico Amaliava. We don't know the status of him just yet, but Gaston Moore came in there. I thought he played pretty decent, but he hasn't played a whole bunch this year. Nico is definitely the right guy for this Tennessee team. So yeah, that could be an obvious concern here for Tennessee going into the Georgia game this weekend, but definitely a winnable game here for Tennessee just based off of the offensive struggles for, Georgia, and that's kind of similarity. Tennessee and Georgia have struggled on offense this year, but their defense seems like they've made the difference and everything. But Tennessee here at number 4, they beat Mississippi State 33-14. Texas beat Florida 49-17. Pretty easy win for Texas. Quinn Ewers looked pretty much better in this game. This is the kind of Texas team that we kind of expect here going the rest of the way. This looked like the Texas team in the first half of the year. Remember in the last couple of games, Texas looked like not the best team in the country based off of the first half of the year, but this game right here kind of proved that they are still like that Texas team that we kind of expect. Now, Florida isn't really that good because they had a third-string quarterback in this game, so maybe that's the reason why Texas Texas won this game pretty easily, but they were playing at home, and that's kind of the difference as well. So Texas here at number 3. Ohio State at number 2 beat Purdue at home 45-0. So a big shutout win there for Ohio State. They'll get ready for Northwestern this weekend, but then they'll play Indiana the next weekend. And like I said, that game is not this weekend. It is next weekend. So the Buckeyes here at number 2. And then Oregon at number 1. Beat Maryland 38-18, I believe was the final score. 39-18, actually. Oregon, still my number 1 team here. They're 9-0. And actually 10-0, actually. They're 10-0, I think, because they, played last weekend as well. So if I'm not mistaken there, I think they're actually 10-0. So I forgot to change my graphic there. But I actually wasn't really impressed with Oregon's performance in the first half. Second half, also kind of a little bit of the same. But I think Oregon, a win's a win for them. They're still the number 1 ranked team in the country. I'm still not going to penalize them, even though they didn't really play their best game. But Oregon, at number 1, this team, I think, has an easy path to get to the Big Ten championship, and we'll see who they play against. It's either going to be Ohio State or Indiana, in my opinion. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that as we go the rest of the way forward here in this college football season. But that is my official top 25 heading into week number 12 of this 2024 college football season. Let me guys know what you think about my top 25, and give me your top 25 rankings down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.